January's finally over, thank God. I don't know what it was about this year, but I really felt the effects of January. I don't know if it's just London being permanently grey all the time, but I really felt those January blues. The best way to combat that, though, was movie watching. So I watched a fair amount of movies in January. I honestly wish I watched a little more. I think my numbers have started off pretty weak this year, which is rough. I did very well last year. I want to kind of keep that up. But as will become obvious in doing this video, I had a rough week and it shows in what I watched. If you're new here, and I guess if you're not, I'm Jack. Welcome to this page, Found in Frames. I talk about films. I love films. I try to do video essays. I'm aiming to do that once a month. I'm trying to do a video every week. A lot of my other videos are written and I do prefer that, but they just take a while because I like to research those videos. So I thought it'd be a nice way every month to maybe do what I've watched so I can talk about older movies. Since I kind of only review on like short form content, new stuff that's coming out, I don't really get an opportunity to talk about older stuff unless it's part of a video essay. And I thought this might be kind of cool to create a little community every month that we can kind of share what we've been watching in the comments and things. And I was thinking if you comment your favorite thing that you watched this month, I will try watch at least one of them in the following month, which could be kind of cool. But anyway, enough of me yapping. Let's dive into what I started the year with, which was the Stranger Things finale. Now, I know for some people across the world, this was the end of last year. For me, it was 1 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Day, which is crazy that I stayed up to watch that finale. I'm going to keep my thoughts on this kind of brief because I'm actually in the middle of rewatching Stranger Things 5. I really was unsure how to feel about that season overall. There was so much internet chatter about the show, and I just felt very conflicted because I kind of enjoyed it on the surface. It felt very in line with what the show has always been. There was far more issues with the show, and I'm not denying that. I actually think, and I'm noticing this upon my rewatch, I think the issue with the show is that everybody exists in a different show. All of the acting is like such varied levels. All of the characters are varied levels of like realness. I think the parts of the show that really work and the parts of the finale that really work are the people that have kind of stayed within Hawkins and stayed having a semi-grounded story. Nancy will forever be my favorite character in this show, and I enjoy what she gets in season 5. It still feels in line with her character. Dustin's character, I really enjoy his resolution, even though upon rewatch it actually is not fun to watch him and Steve's storyline. I know that was a common complaint throughout the season, and I just kind of dismissed it because I actually thought from a writing perspective it's quite interesting, and I still do think that. But upon a rewatch, it's just not fun to watch. I enjoyed the finale though. I think for the season that they set up, the finale was good. I think in another world, the finale could have been better to like cap off this TV show. But for the season that we got, I enjoyed it. Yes, there was too much of an emphasis on Holly and all of those other children, and there was characters that got completely lost. Like, Joyce does nothing for the entire season and then suddenly gets this big massive conclusion in the finale, and I don't think it particularly works. But I don't know, the epilogue worked for me. This show's always been about their characters and they clearly have love for them and understand how to write them. I thought the ending was kind of beautiful. Mike kind of being the Duffer Brothers saying goodbye to the show. It's not without its issues, but I enjoyed it. I properly started my movie watching with The History of Sound. This was a delightful movie. I saw it at a preview screening, Oliver Hermanus's next movie about Paul Mescal and Josh O'Connor falling in love in the 1920s. They're two Americans who try and collect folk songs throughout like rural America. It is a wonderful movie. I know this didn't necessarily sit well with a lot of people, but I got a lot out of this. The chemistry between Paul Mescal and Josh O'Connor is insane. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because they both kind of came up through very romantic roles, so it doesn't surprise me that they have a lot of chemistry together. But what I found fascinating is none of that chemistry is reliant on sex or physical touch necessarily. There's just a intimacy between the two of them, their glances and the way that they act around each other. I will say as well, something I adored was the timing of this. A lot of people have complained about it being too slow or whatever. I think Oliver Hermanus has such a command over timing. It's so beautiful to witness. There's moments where you'll have like two people talking in a scene and the editing would normally switch between the perspectives of the person talking, but there's like such like lingering shots on a person after they've finished speaking. The other person starts to speak and you're watching them react, and I sometimes think that that is more powerful acting. I don't know, I got a lot out of this. The story is very well worn. If you've seen a queer story that's kind of older, then you kind of know what this story is going to be. But I really liked it. And if anybody's not watched this because of the critical reception, I would encourage you to check out because I liked it. Then I had a rewatch of Sentimental Value. You can watch my best movies of the year if you want all of my thoughts about that movie because I adore it. It was something that I really wanted to rewatch because I hadn't seen it since like October. So I really wanted to get a rewatch in the cinema. It's delightful. Joachim Trier just knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to human stories. The complexities that he gets out of these characters, these 4 characters, it feels like you get character studies of all of them. It's such a magnificent screenplay. I think he just understands people better than most writer directors. The ending yet again made me have this like pit in my stomach. This like, it's weird. I have this emotional reaction to it, but I'm not necessarily like crying. It's just a gorgeous ending. And I do want to shout out, especially on this rewatch, I think, oh my gosh, what's her name? I think Inga Ibsdottir Lilias, I think that's how you say her name, is absolutely magnificent in this. I really would like her to get some awards for supporting actress because she does so much here. People will praise Renata Reinsver for playing a more like emotionally vulnerable person, I guess. But she has such a command over how she holds herself. But you can clearly see the stuff going on inside of her. I just thought it was a wonderful performance. I then watched Song Sung Blue, which I didn't love. I didn't hate either. I'm not a big musical biopic fan. Ask anybody, I just hate them. Because I have reasons. They just are normally the same story over and over and over. It feels like you can feel the structure of those movies a lot more than you can other narratives. This plays out very similarly, except if you don't know, it's about a duo who are like a Neil Diamond tribute band, and they don't have massive success or anything, but they have like a large following of people from where they're from, and it's about their success and failure and all of the stuff that they go through. The first half of it is just standard biopic stuff that I just wasn't particularly enthralled by. However, the back half, it becomes, I've seen people describe it as the iron lung for like musical biopics, and it absolutely is that. I did not expect for this to go in the direction that it does. It turns into just a straight up drama about like pursuing what you love in life. And I really liked this part of the movie. I thought Kate Hudson gave a fantastic performance as well. So I don't know, I got a little out of this. I then rewatched Avatar, Fire and Ash in IMAX 3D. I started doing this with The Way of Water, but when that movie came out, I saw it twice because the premium formats are available. The way that this has been intended to be watched is available, so why wouldn't I do it? As expected, I really enjoyed this. If you want more of my thoughts, it's also my best movies of 2025. I'm realizing I started the year off with a lot of rewatches because it really is like dumpuary. Like there has not been great movies out in the cinema. James Cameron just knows what he's doing with these movies. I think the world that he's crafting is so gorgeous to look at. I mean, no shit, the visual effects are incredible. But I also think that there is a degree of complexity with these characters in this installment that I've been missing from the others that I came to really enjoy. I think Quaritch is like a generational villain. Love his arc and his character so much. And you think it would be a tired bit because he is the villain of every movie. But I like what they do with him here. Okay, then I had a bit of a spiral. So this is where my movie watching is just very strange, and I do apologize. So in one consecutive night, I watched the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Tropic Thunder, and Bridesmaid. All 3 of these were rewatches, and I don't know why I picked these 3 in particular to pick me up. I kind of get Tropic Thunder and Bridesmaids because they're comedies that I've enjoyed before, but the Super Mario Bros. Movie, I have no reason for why I picked that. I guess with the Super Mario Brothers movie, I have judged it, I think, too harshly before. I remember leaving the cinema and being quite annoyed with the film, or just, it's so weird to call it a film because it is a collection of like Easter eggs for Nintendo fans, and that's really cool, and I think I dismissed it a little because of that. But upon reflection, this movie is gorgeous. For one, it's the best Illumination like animated movie, at least that I've seen, and I think probably in their overall catalog, if I'm being honest. But what's really interesting is if you frame it from the idea of Mario has never really had that like detailed a story. His story is like tried and true. It's the most plain vanilla story you can get. And they have been able to cobble together different aspects of different games and franchises and characters into a narrative that makes sense and is fun. I don't know, upon reflecting on this, I think it's actually a pretty decent start for this franchise and this world. It's an okay film. It feels very much in line with like the MCU starting out. I will never forgive it for the excessive use of pop songs that they use instead of the incredible score that this movie has. This really does have such a good score. It does not need pop music thrown in because the score eclipses any of the pop songs used, and they just feel so out of place. But I don't know, the voice acting is great, the animation's great, and maybe it's because I'm sad, but I had a great time with this. Then I rewatched Tropic Thunder, and I was so curious to see if this held up. I remember being shown this movie when I was about 15 maybe, from a friend of mine who, her and her brother, like, loved this movie, found it hysterical. They couldn't wait to show me it. And from the first frame, the fake trailers that play in this movie, I remember adoring this when I was 15 because, of course, like, this just feels like a movie made for teenagers. However, I am surprised that this holds up. It really does. It is a genuinely hilarious take on Hollywood. The satire genre is a little sparse, and I think sometimes when it's done, it isn't done particularly well. I adored this, and I really could not believe that this held up as much as it did. I think it's also a type of movie that's kind of missing right now, like a really silly movie. I think we need more silly movies. And then I rewatched Bridesmaids, which I'd seen a few years ago, and I just thought it was a decent comedy. My God, I was wrong about this movie. I think this movie's like special. And I see why this is often a movie that comes up when people are asked their favorite comedies of all time. Yes, because it's highly comedic. Kristen Wiig is a genius, but also because it has a lot of depth to it. And I think that's where the best comedic stuff comes out, is when you have something behind it to back up the comedy, and this movie has it in spades. It's a coming of age movie. Like, that's the way I view it. I think coming of age as a genre often gets pinned down to teenagers and like the ages where you come of age typically in life. But I think there's multiple periods in life where that happens, and this is exploring a really interesting period in people's lives where people could be doing so many different things. It doesn't mean somebody's bad or worse off because they're not doing as well in an area as somebody else. I don't know, I just find it really relatable as a growing adult. This movie like captures that idea so well. And underneath all that depth I'm talking about, it's just such a funny movie. Kristen Wiig, genuinely, I really wish she was in more comedies because, I mean, I know she's in a lot, but I need more of her because she's just too good. Her relationship with Rose Byrne in this movie is phenomenal. The scene where they're giving speeches back and forth, too good. I then rewatched Is This Thing On? I got to go to a really cool event in London where it was kind of showing in like a jazz bar lounge area. So we were at like little tables that had 4 people at the table, and we were like, it was like a comedy club. So we were watching it, and then when it ended, we got to speak to people and stuff. It was a really cool environment to see a movie in. But this movie, I saw it back in London Film Festival. It just really clicked this time for me. I'd been wanting to rewatch it. I genuinely got so much out of this movie. Bradley Cooper is becoming a director that I really, really enjoy, like, his work. All 3 of his projects now, I think, are brilliant. But I think there's something really special about this. I think on the surface, it presents itself as a funny movie, as a movie about stand-up, but it has so much more going on. And I actually don't think that that's the primary like mission of the film, is to be funny. I think it is more about discovering your passions and your joys in life, and how doing that individually is so healthy and needed to foster relationships between people. If you're unhappy with yourself, you'll be unhappy in a relationship. This meditation on seeking out your passions and letting that joy and love permeate throughout your entire life. I got a lot out of this. It has a laser sharp script that I really, really adore, and some stellar performances. Highly recommend checking this out if you've not. I finally got to see The Secret Agent, which I'd been desperate to watch. I got to go to a preview screening because it's still not out in the UK yet. It is coming out soon, I think next week. If you haven't seen this movie, if you're not planning to go watch this movie, I couldn't recommend it enough. I need a rewatch. It is gargantuan, the amount of stuff that this movie tries to tackle, but it does it so well. And it's also not like presenting itself as tackling a lot of issues or anything on the surface. It is just the story of this man's life. But in the presentation of this man's life, it is unpacking so much about Brazilian culture and Brazil at the time that this is taking place in. I was lucky enough to attend a Q&A with Kleber Mendoza Filho and Wagner Moura, and it really contextualized what I already thought was a really lovely film. I recommend maybe seeking out some of their interviews if you do plan on watching this after seeing it, because I wasn't particularly aware of the situation that happened in Brazil in the 70s. I knew little bits and bobs from other bits of media, but it's just interesting hearing Brazilians talk about what happened then and how that affects their country now. What's beautiful though is it doesn't allow this very heavy narrative to weigh down the movie. It's just an accurate representation of what that time would have been like. There's still humor and horror and an honesty there that I really appreciated. I don't want to spoil the movie, but the way that this movie presents itself, even in the title, like The Secret Agent, you go into the movie expecting a certain thing. The introduction into this world definitely leans into what you think this movie will be, and I think the title really helps with that. But the movie becomes something else entirely as it goes on. As the truth is like slowly peeled back, you realize how wrong you've assessed the situation yourself. And suddenly it recontextualizes everything that you've seen in a just wonderful way. There's a middle section of this movie that is absolutely phenomenal. It really sings. It's where you like begin to learn a lot more about Wagner Moura's character and the frustration that he's having to sit in. Add on a layer that a lot of this is history that is trying to be erased. It really makes you feel the like gravity of the situation. The film ramps up to this gorgeous ending as well. This is poignant and it's jarring. I don't want to spoil it, but this idea that Brazil as a country during that time period seeked to kill people twice. They were killed by their country, but they were also killed in the media. Like the way that that perpetuates throughout history of making people seem evil when they weren't at all. I don't know, got a lot out of this movie. Highly recommend it. Then I started work on a video that will be coming soon-ish, maybe in a while. I watched Lost Highway. It was my first David Lynch movie, which is crazy. I watched this in the BFI, which was so cool. They were showing this live with a packed crowd. I think like this is the way to experience it. They were honoring David Lynch. So it was like big Lynchian fans who were there. I don't want to say too much about this movie because I am going to get into Lynch stuff at a later date. But this is a mindfuck in the best way possible. I've thought about this movie a lot since seeing it. It reminded me a lot of the the line from the woman in Tenet, where she's like, "Don't try to understand it, feel it." Very much applies to this movie. I then watched 28 Years The Bone Temple, which I liked, I didn't love. I was a massive fan of the previous installment in this trilogy. I thought that it worked wonderfully. I know people seem to be divided on both of these movies. This one is getting a lot more praise, but there was something really special about that first movie where you were like learning about this world through the eyes of Spike. And I liked that it was split into two halves where it was kind of like nihilism versus optimism. But because you were going on this journey through Spike, each of those ideologies kind of bled into each other because it was through his eyes. And in this movie, I feel like they're tackling very similar themes of nihilism versus optimism, but I don't think that the narrative is as strong because it is such divided stories. You're not getting Spike as the character that's going on this journey. I really enjoyed like everything with Dr. Kelson, and I think there's a scene in the middle that really works between him and Jimmy. But Jimmy himself, I had issues with. I didn't think that we unpacked him enough. I think they were trying to use gratuitous violence to inform his character. And I think they do that, but I don't think they like add on to that. And I struggled a little with his character. Still a wonderful movie, completely disturbing. And I absolutely hated the ending. Like I did the like first installment in this trilogy. It feels so much like studio interference. Like they are trying to build a franchise and making sure people see it so that they want to go see the next movie. This one reeked of that though. Like the first one was just tonally jarring, I think, because it had such a strong ending prior to that scene. This movie, the scene just felt so out of place. And it again, what annoys me about both of these movies is they have beautiful endings that they decide to ruin with an additional scene. I then watched the short film Frozen Fever. I don't know why I did this. I think maybe just, I don't know. I actually don't know. My review of that is it's not great. The song's really bad as well in it. Like, the animation's pretty, but yeah. Then I watched Blue Velvet, another David Lynch. Incredible movie. My God. It's very simplistic, I guess. I've heard a lot of people say that this is his most like straightforward. It still has a surreal quality to it, even though the storyline is so plain and straightforward. Loved that it played into genre, and it just is like a incredible noir film. I thought the acting was just absolutely brilliant across the board. Again, I will unpack this movie at a later date. Then I watched The Umbrellas of Cherbourg in cinema as well, which was a delightful experience. If you haven't seen this, this is a Jacques Demy movie, and the colors in this movie, my God. This is like a movie that should be playing in a cinema permanently so people can witness this on a big screen. It's so gorgeous to look at. The colors, the vibrancies, the set. I genuinely think that this movie is one of the best looking movies I've seen, which is crazy. I was actually unaware that this was a musical, like a complete musical from start to finish. There's no dialogue, it is just singing. And I liked it, but I had issues in places, and I'm so like ready to say that this is because I don't speak French and there's a layer that's lost on translation. But I often think the powerful aspects of musicals is because you have an emotional rise and that comes out through song. And that happens here. There's definitely emotional rises where the songs kind of ramp up, and those parts are great. It's the parts where they have to like move the plot along or like sing about things that aren't as climactic in the movie that take me out of it. It makes those scenes feel a little heavier than they should. I think it feels like it is not moving with the same rhythm as the rest of the movie. However, I think the third act in this movie shines. It's got such a bittersweet feeling to it. It's not, I thought it was just going to be a straight up love story, if I'm being honest. But it's got a lot more going on about like adult choices that have to be made and the different directions people's lives can go in. So I really enjoyed this. Then I saw No Other Choice. My God, I'm so glad I saw this in the BFI IMAX. I've been waiting so long for this movie, and it was as good, if not better, than I expected. I have a whole like essay up on Letterboxd if you want to read that. This movie hit me particularly hard because since graduating like 2 years ago, I've been laid off twice because of tech shit. So this did hit me quite hard, but I loved it as a film, even not like relating to it on a personal level. It's thrilling and it's funny and it's light and breezy, but it's also dealing with such heavy subject matter, but it never feels like weighed down by that. It's so unique. Park Chan-wook as a director I find utterly fascinating because so many directors have said that they struggle to tackle modernity or like talking about the issues that are going on in our world right now with modern time films. So they go back in time to tell modern stories. And yet Park Chan-wook is telling something that takes place right now, and he does it with such ease that, you know, uses all of our modern trappings, but in such cinematic ways. I think he's an absolute genius, and I think this movie is truly up there with his best. On a technical level as well, it's just some of the most creative stuff that you'll ever see. I mean, the editing in this movie feels like nothing else. The way that shots are composed feels like nothing else. It feels so singular in its vision. I do wonder if this is why it puts some people off, because it doesn't fit into the kind of normality that you would see in other movies. It is so starkly different, but no, I loved this. I treated myself to a rewatch of Marty Supreme. Again, I will link you to the best movies of the year like video because this was my number 2. I had a lot to say about it. It absolutely works as well as I hoped it would on a rewatch. I absolutely adore this movie. I will say what I noticed on this rewatch was that as much as Timothy is brilliant, he is, not taking anything away from him, I noticed how great every other supporting character was around him. Josh Safdie has created a world here, and without the world of characters that he builds, the movie doesn't function as well as it does. It just feels so naturalistic. Every single person that was cast in this movie, such great casting work and also great performances across the board. Really liked Gwyneth Paltrow on a rewatch. Odessa Zion really stood out to me on my first watch for like a supporting actress, but I think Gwyneth Paltrow is doing something so subtle. She's playing this woman who is like bearing all of this horrible weight. Really loved her performance. And I finished the year off with a movie called Two Sleepy People, which is a movie that has been made by Creator Camp, a really cool initiative which is trying to get creators to break into the film industry without going through the traditional studio system. They're making their own movies. This movie was great. I really enjoyed it. There's something so endearing about independent cinema that I really, really liked. Everything being a low budget and not having a lot to work with, but being so creative because you don't have as many resources at your disposal. It worked really well here. I know the writing won't necessarily work for some people. It works a little like a Woody Allen movie where characters are proclaiming things that are really long and they are talking about life in ways that isn't necessarily how people talk. But I really liked it. I think the things that they have to say are actually quite interesting. There's some really gorgeous lines in this movie that have stuck with me. I think there's a little to be desired around the main woman's story. And to be honest, all the women in the movie, I think they're kind of sidelined a little. But I really enjoyed this and the performances are great as well. That's sadly it. That's all that I watched this month. I guess I also have been watching a few TV shows. TV shows took up a little bit of my time. I started A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which I'm really enjoying. I really enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I got to see them in a cinema. I was weirdly at the UK premiere, but I was not invited to that. I just bought a ticket and it ended up being the UK premiere and they had a Q&A. But that show worked so well in the crowd. It kind of makes me think that they should have just released it all as a movie, or that TV should work in cinemas. Like they should play some more episodes, or I don't know, something. Because I was just like, oh, TV in a communal space actually is really cool. So I watched those first 2 episodes. They really worked. I watched the third. I wasn't as keen on it. I think the first 2 episodes were so comedic and that the third one is now trying to integrate a story. And I'm not sure whether or not there's like a misbalance there. Still enjoyed it a lot, but I'm excited to see where it goes. I watched a few other bits and bobs randomly, but I guess the main thing that I watched this month was Heated Rivalry. After people telling me for ages to watch it, I actually succumbed to them and realized it's a really good show. I was shocked. The internet chatter and focusing on the intimacy and the leads and talking about their like faces and bodies and stuff, it does a disservice to the show actually, because the show is a really well told story. It's the cinematography in the show is wonderful. The acting's great. The storyline is a little cliched in areas, but it's also refreshing, I guess, because it's a queer angle. And also we don't have shows that look like this. So I don't know. Really enjoyed that. That's what I watched in January. I don't know how this video is going to turn out, if it was good or not. Please let me know if you like this style of video and maybe I'll keep continuing to do this. Let me know what your favorite watch was in January and I'll try to watch one of them for February. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe. If you want to know my daily thoughts on film and TV, go over to my Instagram and TikTok and I will catch you in the next video.